Welcome to another episode of Podcasting for Financial Professionals. I'm Virginia Elder, your host, the owner of Podcast Abundance, a podcast production company specifically for financial professionals content. Today, you get to meet a top business growth expert who's helped hundreds of business owners scale, giving her experience in 80 plus industries. Yes, even the financial space. She's the author of Expert in You, an international bestseller, and the host of the Expert in You podcast. Carden is all about positioning yourself as a provider of a premium offer, being strategic about your visibility, and getting in front of the right buyers so you can make $50,000, $100,000, or even $400,000 deals instead of feeling stuck with like a 5K or so offer and calling those sales high ticket. No. Anne wants you to play a lot bigger, and she's got the strategy, the power partners, and the connections to help you get into that next tier in business. On top of that, of course, we get a back-end peek into the makings of her show, why she rebranded a year in, and her unique take on podcasting for business. Anne, thank you so much for being here today. Welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
You have built and sold 5 businesses. You've been in the game for a while, and now you help other entrepreneurs do the same thing. So could you give us the quick rundown of how you got here?
Sure. Left a 13-year corporate career. It was a high-end business, so working in high-end department stores, furs, high-end cosmetics, clothing, that kind of thing, and made the decision to be a stay-at-home mom after my kids were born and they were little, and we made a move back to the Midwest, and we kind of found out the math didn't work, and so I started looking for a way to make money, and I started my first business, which went global. Back then before the internet. So that was 30 something years ago. So I've been in the business game over 40 years, over 4 decades. And so after I did that business for 7 years, running kind of a manufacturing company out of my home, I stepped into the fitness industry, built 4 businesses in that industry. And then I started coaching about 14 years ago, coaching and consulting. And now I have my consulting and I have my marketing and media agency, Expert in You.
Beautiful. Yeah. So let's from the top mention your show and your book, Expert in You. So do you want to just share a little bit about when you decided to become an author? Because I know this is your 3rd book.
Actually, my 4th, I just published another one, yes, called Be the One They Choose, The New Rules for Standing Out and Winning More Business. So that one has been out a couple of months.
Yeah.
But I started my first one when I decided to be in the coaching and consulting space because I really felt like it would add that credibility, that layer of credibility to speak on stages and just really build that kind of that belief system that I could help people. And that was the reason I wrote the first book. And then every time I made a shift in the industry, I did another book because I really believe you should always have an expert book around what you are currently doing. So a lot of people don't do that. They'll write a book and it's very disconnected from what they're doing in their business now. And it's sometimes even outdated. And so I just wrote the 4th one. And I actually wrote that because I was going to speak at an event. And I felt like the room didn't need my Expert in You book, Build a Lucrative Coaching Consulting Business. So I'm like, okay, well, let me just take a piece of that, the whole marketing and sales piece and building your visibility online, and let me put that into a book. And so that's exactly what I wrote it for.
That's amazing. Okay. So share a little bit more about what you do, because I know the financial professionals listening are thinking like, okay, I listen to this show because I want to, boost my visibility and get out there. And I know podcasting is a great tool in which to do that. I've had various other authors and ghostwriters and things to help these financial professionals write their books, but they're probably a little bit overwhelmed thinking like, great, now I have all this content that I have to create plus run my business and get clients and do all this. So could you share, how they can balance that all and more about your services and how you've done it?
When I came into the online space, I went down kind of a lot of the wrong rabbit holes, I like to say. And I had to really create a simpler, cleaner system that would allow me to really build my authority in the market. Again, kind of build that know, like, and trust before people ever got into conversations with me, and just build that visual brand. So the whole idea is if somebody Googles me, they'll easily be able to see what I do. And that's what I help other people do. It's a big play that I work with them on because it's really non-negotiable anymore, especially if you want to be sustainable in an industry, you want to stand out, you want to win more business. And I even go a step above that and I talk about winning higher end clients. So what my business is really built around is getting premium clients. Whether, it doesn't matter what business you're in, it makes no difference. I've done this in over 80 different industries, and I've done it for hundreds and hundreds of people to help them stand out in a category of one so that they're attracting the right people to them and making that sale super simple.
Okay, so I have to ask you, of course, all of us have heard the different podcasts or talking head people about like, just make more calls, make more, speak at more events, do more, do more, do more is what it typically sounds like. But you mentioned one of my favorite words, sustainability.
Sim- and
And
simplicity.
simplicity. Yes, those are two
Yes,
like
yeah.
two things I
Hmm.
talk on all the time. So, help us see a little bit behind the scenes of what you've built and your offers and all of that. Of, I don't think you're going to tell your clients to make more sales calls.
No, not at all. In fact, they don't really make any, to be
Amazing.
honest. Yes, they don't really make any. So here's the thing, when you have the right strategic approach to your business, you simplify your business. And this is the strategy is the missing piece for most people. They do not have a clear cut strategy that's going to be right for them. And this is different for everyone. Some people podcasting, and I have a different strategy for podcasting, but we podcast for clients. So it's not just, a lot of people podcast just for visibility, and that's all great, and that will still come. But why not just podcast for clients? Like, why not podcast to get the right people into conversations with you? So that's the strategy I teach. And even being a guest, even if you're going to guest, why not guest on shows where it makes sense, where you can really get clients? And so there's that's one system that we have. The other thing that does is it really builds the visibility. You can utilize that content in so many ways, right? You can transcribe it and it can become articles and blogs and newsletters and all of those kinds of things. So a lot of people are doing things very much the hard way. But I do believe everyone should have some sort of an expert book. We also will publish magazines for people. I have a really high end magazine. That's another great play if you want to get in front of those really high end clients, to have your own magazine, have your own media. So we're talking about building an expert platform. And there's just a simpler path to doing that. So yes, speaking, we everything I teach my clients is at a very high level. It's where you're going to have that one-to-many approach where the most people have the opportunity to experience you and what you're all about, and so that you're attracting them to you. And so yes, there's a very clear strategy that has to be in place. But podcasting, speaking, virtual events are another big play for us. Again, because it's a one to many approach. You pull the right people into the room. And because I help people get really high end clients, this is all a really different system from the traditional funnels and things that people are out there teaching. So a funnel might be right, but it might not be. And that's what working with a strategist or someone who's it really has a lot of depth and experience, such as myself, that just really can streamline your whole system.
I love what you talked about there, podcasting for business. Again, you and I are just speaking the same language because that is a lot of what I share about identifying who your podcast is really for, making sure your calls to action are tight, making sure that the process a listener would go through to follow your call to action is simple and accessible. So I love that piece of it. Would you be able to elaborate a little on your perspective of podcasting for business? Because they've heard mine.
Yes. So, first of all, it's one of my favorite ways. I love speaking and I love virtual events. So, those are my other two things. But it is one of my favorite ways to bring in really high end clients. It's such a fun way to do it. So, one of the things that I help people do that's a little bit different is I help them think about, okay, where could maybe a host be a client? Or where could the person that I put on my podcast be a potential client? So, a little bit different of a strategy play to be able to turn those into then conversations because you're already doing the heavy lifting, right? You're already getting to know that person. And so, when you do this in the right way, you can uncover if there is a need and then how to move them into that next step. So, this is all part of the system that I teach. It's great that the audience hears, but I don't want to wait on that play. So it's a faster path that I teach my clients, and so they'll be able to get high end clients. A lot of times, very easy, but it's not easy to put in place because the first year I had my podcast, I made zero. I had to go back to the drawing board, like what's wrong with this strategy. And so as I started building on my podcast, I uncovered this really high level strategy.
I love that. That is slightly different from what I teach, but I think it's completely doable. And it's a an experience that I've had kind of accidentally through this show because I will have various financial professionals on. I've had a few that like reach back out a couple weeks later and say like I can't stop thinking about our conversation. Let's talk about producing my show. And that's
Yes, yeah.
unexpected and I'm thankful for it. It's awesome.
Ooh, so it
Uh,
could be a strategy for you.
right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Don't miss those opportunities because that's kind of a hope method, right? You
Right.
hope they're going to reach back out. Yeah, we go a little bit deeper than that and we actually move them into a call if it makes sense. So a different play.
How can the financial professionals listening, again, whether they are in bookkeeping or whether they're a personal finance money coach, how can they think about their content, recognizing that, let's say, if you're in the financial advisor space, you have compliance issues to worry about. There's certain things you can't say or advertise yourself in a certain way, but you have some experience in that space. So,
Here's the thing, people still want to get to know you and they still want to know what makes you an expert at what you do. And so it needs to be more educational and visible, like visibility based. So I'm getting in front of more people, right? But I'm also sharing my expertise and my knowledge and giving them deep insights without doing anything that's not compliant. So a good example of this, I'm talking about maybe the problems people have if they are starting to invest, right? That makes for great listening, something people would really care about or what whoever. First you have to determine who your audience is and who you want for those clients. So educate your audience and let them just continue to see that you really know what you're talking about. And there are ways to share stories without, again, getting out of compliance, but real stories that make people say, oh gosh, that's kind of where I am, or that's me, right? Those are the things. So your content should influence buyers. And a lot of people don't talk about that so much. They're talking about just putting out stuff and noise. But all of your content, your strategy that you have behind your content, and this is where a lot of people also go wrong, is they don't have that strategy mapped out. And so they are just noise. It is just more stuff out there. But when you have a great strategy behind what you're doing in your content, you're influencing buyers. You're moving them closer to wanting to talk to you. And at the end of the day, you have to have conversations, right? But yes, I don't help people cold call. We don't do any of that. Everything that doesn't mean we don't do outreach. I want to just make make that clear. It doesn't mean we're not doing things to get in front of people. So there's an inbound, you have to do outbound work to get inbound results, right? There's a lot of ways though to play that strategy where you're getting more referrals, where you're getting more people coming to you.
Yeah, I love that. So, something I saw in your brand is around the thought process of if I'm thinking I need to level up in my business, we'll use that language. A lot of times we think we need a coach. And what you do now is not necessarily coaching. So, could you tell us what's different about you? And I know you've mentioned the strategic piece, but I also saw some keywords: power partner and strategic ally. So, could you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I quit calling myself a coach a long time ago. Sometimes people will still call me that, and it's fine. But it really goes beyond being a coach because I'm not teaching a cookie cutter system. I'm teaching people what's going to work for them or what's going to be a better strategy for them. And so I am a strategist, and a lot of people don't really have a strategic side to what they do. And so because I look at everything that my clients are doing and everything they need, and then we build a new strategy for that. But I also consider myself a trusted partner and really an ally to them. Most people don't want coaching, they want advisory. I've never really been a coach. Like, okay, tell me what you think about this, and it like they have all the answers, because in business and marketing they don't have all the answers. That's why they're hiring me. So they need someone that can really advise them and guide them and partner with them. For example, I had a client this morning. He said, Ann, I'm so sorry to bother you, but can we just jump on a quick call? I have something I just want to talk through with you. To me, that's a partner. So I work very high level, very high touch. And we jumped on a call. We got his situation taken care of, and he moved on. I moved on. That to me is more of a partnership than a coach.
Talk to me about like maybe some balancing challenges if that you've ever had between that one-to-one high touch, high profile client and your own time, right? Because a lot of times people are booked up, their schedule is full, they don't have enough space for another client, even though they want to increase their income. Then they're looking at podcasting or book writing or anything else, thinking, like, how am I going to have time to do all this? So, how do you balance? Like, what is your secret method there?
Well, the first thing I would say is anybody that's booked up needs to level up. We should never be booked up. We should always have a really high end offer that you can deliver with a leveraged model that does not take away all of your time. I'll give you an example. I think about one of my clients, a coach, a mindset coach actually, and she was charging little bitty fees for 90 days and doing all this stuff. And we moved her into getting $50,000 clients, and she worked with them 2 hours a month. So when you get clients at $50,000 and you're working with them 2 hours a month, you can handle that, right? So when I talk about playing at a high level, you don't need as many clients. So if somebody's booked up, to me, they probably haven't built out a premium system yet, and that would be their first place. So I help people that are in that situation often 3 to 10 times their fees to work with a really, really high end client. And that is where they can get out of that grind. So here's an example. CPAs or accountants, these people, even financial advisors could potentially do this in a certain way, but you have to almost have something to sell beyond your financial advising. But let's say you've built out some excellence in a certain area, you can become an advisor. So CPAs, for example, a lot of people do this in business. They'll give away the strategy, they'll give away the assessments, they'll give away the brilliance just to land the client. And I teach them how to charge for that. So if they can charge, let's say $50,000 or $25,000 on that front end offer, and they can get paid in cash for that, and then they could close that client into maybe a six or a multi six-figure deal on the back end, you don't need as many clients. So that's the model that we have, that I teach my clients, and that's the model I use. So I only work with so many people. That's it. I can take time off when I want. My podcast probably takes up more time than anything because I'm always guesting and I'm always, and I'm running my own show that really, but that's out of choice. That's not something I would have to do. I just love it. So that takes up more time in my business than anything. Yeah, so you don't have to spend the hours and hours. Also, the strategies that I teach my clients are very leveraged. And so again, it's like, where can you get the most bang for your buck? How can you get the big visibility play, also be getting clients from that, and then repurposing that content and all of that. But there's so many ways to do this and so many opportunities that we have online, but you need an expert platform. And that's really what we're talking about here.
So you talked about your show a little and hosting a little bit and how that fits into your week. But earlier you mentioned about when you first started your show, you had to go back to the drawing board. So let's switch gears and just really dive into your show and your content and talk to me about that process. Because I think getting started and figuring out what's working for a podcast is the hardest part. I've had clients tell me, like, forget the plaque at like 100 plus episodes. I need the plaque at like episode 10 because I worked really hard. The learning curve is steep at the beginning. So, could you share a little bit about those early days of experience in the podcasting space? Give them something to work for.
I don't really feel like it has to be steep. And that's the whole thing. I think a lot of people make it so hard. Especially if you can hire a back end team to do your services and do all the podcast stuff for you, that's great. If you're going to be a DIYer, that's another play, right? But it doesn't have to be hard. Why it's hard for people is they don't, again, it goes back to the strategic side. They don't have a clear strategy. When I started my first show, in fact, it changed names the second year, and it used to be the Strategic Edge. So strategy again, right? And I thought, oh, I'll interview business owners and people in business, and I think magically I thought I would get clients that way. For someone who is a strategist, you can't read the label from inside the bottle, right? And I had never podcasted before, so that was a whole new thing for me. But after a year of doing it, it was fine, it was fun, but it was like, okay, I didn't sign up for this just to spend money because I had a team doing the back end stuff, just to spend money and be out there on social, on a podcast, and not get anything from it. I mean, I did it as a business move, as a business growth move. So I had to take a step back and say, okay, I need to rebuild this so that it's bringing me the high-end clients, getting me into conversations with the right people, and then how do I move that into something, whether that's a referral partner. I've built a lot of incredible partnerships. In fact, most of my Expert in You team has come from podcasting. So I built a whole agency off of the people that I have aligned with from a podcast. So having that in place to really know what you want to do with that. So we always say there are three different things. They can either be a client, they can be a referral partner, or they can become like a trusted partner or part of your team in some way. So that's kind of what you're looking for. So yeah, once I figured all that out, it started taking off. And we changed the name to Expert in You because that was about the time my book came out. And I thought, I'm going to go big on this brand. And that's where we are.
Perfect. I love that because I find just across clients, across the years, around somewhere around like episode 20 or so, we can have conversations about changing some language, getting clearer on who you're speaking to. Even though we have all those conversations up front about who your show is for, who it's not for, what your call to action is going to be, the language you're using in your show, and I guide them through all of that, you grow as a podcaster by episode 20 easily. And you're thinking, maybe this word should change. Maybe this phrasing should change. I'm going to build this new lead magnet. And so I need to be talking about that. And you naturally mature in your business as a podcaster easily by episode 20, for sure within the next year of podcasting. And even being a podcasting expert, that was my journey as well. I've changed the name of this show. So it just, I mean, you did it, I did it, they've done it. Like it. So the big thing is though, everyone thinks that to start creating content, it's going to be the perfect message and the perfect visual. And I'm going to say the right things from the start. And so they hesitate and ruminate and draft and plan so much, and it ends up wasting time actually. Like, yes, there's strategy, yes, there's planning involved, but you sit on it for so long before you launch, and guess what,
Yeah.
you're going to change it anyways.
I love that you're talking about
So
this because look, we're always evolving. What I do today is so different from what I did 15 years ago. I'm still doing the same stuff, but my business has, really grown and evolved. And now I have so many more components that I can add and so many more things I can offer. And so your business does evolve. You have to be willing to make even changes. Let's take a financial advisor, for example. There have been changes in the market, right? It never stays the same. Everything's always changing. Your language, your message, your education that you're putting out there has to change with it. A good example of this is when I wrote my Expert in You book several years ago. High ticket was the word everybody was using. Well, now high ticket's like $3,000 or $5,000. I'm like, I don't even play in that market. Like, I don't even want to touch the word high ticket. I do still use it for keywords because it still is a keyword, but I never use the terminology high ticket because it doesn't say $1 million client or a multi six-figure dollar client, right? It doesn't speak to that. So language changes as things get overused. You have to be willing, if you're going to keep rising above, you have to keep uh, being current and relevant to the market. And a lot of people don't get that. And so sometimes that might be changing your show or rebranding. And a lot of people are afraid to do that. But I'm telling you, it's costing them more money to not do that than it is to stay where they are because nothing ever stays where it is. So if your business, this is a great measuring stick. If your business isn't growing, it's declining. And what do you need to fix? What do you need to change?
could you share a little bit about maybe an action step that you even took within your podcast or your content that helped you level up, shall we say, that maybe people can modify and implement in their businesses?
Here's my best tip: content is for buyers, it's not for engagers. If you're doing the engagement play for content, whether it's likes or hearts or downloads or whatever, you're missing the bigger opportunity. If you do content the right way, it influences buyers. In fact, a lot of times when people book calls with me, I didn't even know they existed. They've never liked anything that I've ever put out there. They've never had a conversation with me. Like, I didn't even know they existed, and they found me from my content. So a lot of people make this mistake unless you're going to be an influencer where you get brand deals and things like that. That's a different play. Right now they care about the numbers. But if you're just trying to grow your business, that one shift in your thinking and your mindset, is this going to move buyers closer to me? Forget about the likes. Forget about it. Did I get a lot of engagement on that? People are seeing it. You can see views, right? Just because you get a lot, I get a lot of views, I don't necessarily get a ton of likes and things on my content, and I don't care because that isn't my purpose. And the really high end, the best buyers, they don't have time for all that. So they come across you, they're like, oh my gosh, where have you been? I think I need to talk to you, right? That's a very different play from sitting there. Now, when they come across something they like, they'll check you out further, but they may still never hit that like button. This is high end buying. So if you're looking for those really high end clients, your content needs to influence them, and forget about the people that have time to hang out on social and in groups and they have nothing better to do that are liking your content.
So, on that train of thought, I know that if someone is thinking about attracting high end clients, the whole video piece comes into mind, and they think, oh, I have to look a certain way. I have to be in a gorgeous office. I have to wear certain things, right? So, what are high end clients and your definition of high end, which could be $50,000, $100,000, $400,000 clients? what are they really looking for when they are looking at us, at our videos?
They're not looking at things the same way. They're looking at your expertise. They're listening to what you say. And they are looking, okay, if I'm going to go after corporate clients, I'm not going to show up in a t shirt and cap. Okay. So you do have to somewhat match the people that you're looking for. If I'm looking for the Chanel clients, I need to be in Chanel. I should be in Chanel, right? Or if you're looking for the Tiffany Co clients, you know, think about that. So think about your image matching the buyers that you're looking for. But I'm not even talking about necessarily only affluent business people that are running high-end businesses that have multi-million or even billion-dollar companies. They're still business people, right? So yeah, they might be in a suit and tie, or so again, kind of match that. Even if you look at like people like Grant Cardone, what does he wear? I mean, because he's targeting entrepreneurs, right? He's a billionaire and he's targeting entrepreneurs. And so you'll see him in a polo and you'll see, so match your buyers. And I think that's a really important piece, but you should always show up professional. And I think that's a piece a lot of people miss. Um, so you want to still attract the right people. So you should have your, you know, not for men necessarily, but you should look like you're in business attire, unless you're targeting people that's not stay-at-home moms, right? That wouldn't necessarily matter to them. So know who your audience is, and then dress accordingly. And you can either be so over the top if that's your audience, or you can just be professionally put together. But people want to know you. That's what they're looking for. They want to know you, and they want to know you're the right person, and they want to know you're authentic, and they want to know you know your stuff. But honestly, your marketing in whatever way, it should repel and it should attract.
Well, and I know they think about the same thing about, their podcast cover art or their graphics or their thumbnails, that there should be this elevated quality to them. You might want to have a professional doing those graphics if you're trying to attract a certain type of buyer, right? It's probably not going to be the Canva graphics that you can make by yourself. So there's that give and take of what can you do? What should you do? And is it really connecting with who you want to be attracting?
No, I think that's a really good point. So when you're looking at the visual aspects, the brand aspects of things, it should look higher end so that you are bringing in the right buyers. I see a lot of really brilliant people, but their brand looks kind of budget, and it looks like, yeah, like they did it themselves instead of hiring a professional. And so that doesn't really speak like you're successful. So you need to look like you're successful, and and really, you, like anything, you need to invest in your business in the right ways. It's going to pay off in dividends. So to have a high-end brand, have that look nicer, look better, a professional photo shoot, go do those things. It will pay off for you. This is one of the things we do with our clients. You know, we do high-end retreats, and we bring in a professional photographer and makeup artist and all that, so that they get those marketing assets. That's, people want to see that you're successful, and that's a piece of it.
I would love to hear some action steps that they can take today to elevate their content, to start to think strategically about who they're trying to attract and why. And maybe an example of what you've helped a client do or what you've done in your own brand. We talked a little bit about your book, your show, but I know you have a lot of insight from all these industries, all these businesses. So, what can they do that's actionable right now? How can they up level?
I want you to think about building an expert platform and having a congruent message across all channels where you are, everywhere where you are online, and having a congruent message even when you show up in person. So if you go and Google me, you're going to see the same thing. Expert in you, you're going to see that I help people get high-end clients. You're going to see that same message really all the way through all of my branding. You're going to see the same colors. You're going to see the same kind of fonts. Everything's going to be very cohesive. So that would be the first thing. But you need an expert platform. And the easiest way to do this is through LinkedIn, especially if you're in the financial space. You need to have an expert platform on LinkedIn. This is the first thing I do with my clients is like, we're going to make that expert platform on LinkedIn. And then from there, we'll build out everything else. But that, first of all, LinkedIn offers so many great tools and resources, and it's a search engine, and the positioning for high-end clients. I mean, high-end clients are on LinkedIn. Your people, if you're in the professional space, are on LinkedIn. And a lot of people really miss this play, or they have a very low level strategy or a low level profile that does not, again, pull the right people. So, this is the first thing we do because it's actually the fastest path. And then we can create their show, and then they can even run that on LinkedIn. And so, having an expert platform on LinkedIn is a really great play for people. And then you can build off onto YouTube and to your website and all of those things. But it's the fastest path.
That sounds really good because I can't tell you how many people I've tried to look up or connect with that even if I met them at a conference and they were awesome and we had a great conversation, I go try to find them on LinkedIn and there's like no profile
It's
picture, no
terrible.
description. I'm like,
Hmm.
what are you doing?
You're missing out on a really high end free resource, which is crazy, right? You're
Yeah.
missing out on that. And it is free. So, this is the part that a lot of people will be on Facebook, but Facebook is a social platform. A lot of people are on Instagram, but Instagram is a social platform. LinkedIn is a professional business platform, it's the number one business platform in the world. So, even if you don't think your clients are there, you should still be building that out as an expert platform because when someone Googles you or your business, guess what's going to come up probably above your website? It's going to be LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn profile is always going to come up. So, do you know that over 70% of people that were surveyed said that they would buy from a brand more if they were on LinkedIn? So, think about that. A 70%. And the average income on LinkedIn is over six figures, and on other social platforms, it runs around 50 to 75,000, 75 on the high side. So think about that. That's where those bigger buyers are, and you can reach anybody high level on LinkedIn with the right strategies.
Hey, everyone, go double check your LinkedIn profile. Make sure it says what you want it to say. Make sure there's an updated profile picture. Make sure you've posted sometime within the past month. Like, there's just a few small steps you can take there. And if your podcast is not added to your LinkedIn profile, there's a featured section. You can put that in there as well so that when someone does come across your profile, because Ann just told you, it's going to show up as your top Google result. If someone types in your name, your LinkedIn profile is going to be up there. And that's because LinkedIn is such a big platform. They have more SEO power than any of our individual websites.
And it was built for business, and they consistently add business tools that other platforms do not have. So they have live stream tools. You have to have a third party live stream to run events, but you can run events on there. You can invite 1,000 people a week to your event. That's one big play. Their newsletter feature is amazing. They have audio features. There's so many things that they offer to you that other platforms, like Facebook, for example, I think just keeps making it harder to do business.
Yes.
And LinkedIn gives you the tools, like their Sales Navigator. You can build your own list. It has the number one targeting capabilities of any other platform or search engine. Think about that. You can build your own list with revenue and all of that. So all of those capabilities, it makes it such a robust opportunity for people when they use it in the right way and they work with someone, and don't work with someone that's going to teach you how to do content. That's like hope marketing. You need to work with someone that's going to teach you how to get clients from LinkedIn.
Really, really good advice. Yeah, it's definitely not the LinkedIn of 15 years ago, I would
No,
say,
not at
because
all.
way back then, I think most of us joined it thinking like, oh, okay, like I'm at my corporate job, let me make a
Mm-hmm.
profile. And it was just lame. Like, I don't know what else to say. It
Right.
was so lame. Within the past 5 or so years, it's really gone through a revival I think, as a platform. But I think the other key is all of us are so much more mature in our careers. And we did start using Facebook way back when. So now we've shifted all that social knowledge from our Facebook use into the professionals we are today. And now we use LinkedIn very appropriately. So I think that's like a big part of the shift. But yes, that's really, really good. So, Anne, where do you want to send viewers, listeners? I know your Expert in You magazine is a great place where people can just see who you are and what you do and see a lot of the people that get featured in that type of magazine. But you've also got like your retreat that you mentioned. There's a lot of really cool ways that we can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Let me get to know you. I love to have conversations and get to know people. Go download my magazine, and you may even want to be a feature or run an ad for your company in my magazine. And we have limited space to do that. You can get the free digital download and check that out. And that will also, by the way, put you on my email list. And so as I'm sending out content and things that I feel will be helpful for you, you'll be able to get those things as well, and just stay in touch and stay in communication with me. But also, I have a LinkedIn newsletter called Raise Your Influence, and I would love for you to subscribe to that, because that gives you a lot of the things that I've talked about today, and you can get some real insight as to things you can start doing.
Thank you so much. And I will put all those links in the show notes below this video or below this podcast episode, depending on where you're listening or viewing. So check the show notes, find Anne's profile, follow her, connect with her. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing all your knowledge, Anne.
Thank you. It was so much fun. I appreciate it.